now that the Pistons are on the doorstep, they're on the precipice of infamy. I think this is the biggest story in the league, and I want to give it the attention it deserves because this could be historical, what we are watching. So I'm going to do the top 10 craziest facts about the Pistons losing streak. Now, some of these things are things we all know, but need to be repeated. Some are stats I found this week. Before I jump in, I do want to shout out the Pistons fans because James Edwards wrote a great piece on The Athletic last night after their loss to the Jazz. And the main focus was on the great fans of Detroit and how they deserve better than this. How the arena was packed last night, full of fans trying to will this team to a win. And for you and me, we're fans of a team who less than 2 years ago lost a game by 73 points, okay? We were the focus of everyone's negative attention. I think we can empathize with Pistons fans in a small way in terms of never wanting to have this kind of national attention. I would not wish this on any fan base. That said, I have to talk about them. So here we go. Top 10 craziest facts about the Pistons losing streak. Number 10. And I think this is the single fact that makes this losing streak so incredible. It's something we're all aware of, but it bears repeating. This is year 4 of Troy Weaver's rebuild.
Yeah.
That makes this streak so much more incredible because when you look back at the teams who have had streaks of this magnitude, none of them look like the Pistons. They are all teams in periods of upheaval. For example, the 13-14 Sixers lost 26 in a row. That was the first year of the process. They had traded Drew the summer before. Hinkie was in the process, no pun intended, of building a team designed to lose.
Yeah.
2010-11 Cleveland, they lost 26 in a row. Also the first year of a rebuild, and not just any rebuild. The Cavs lost LeBron James, arguably the greatest player of all time the summer before. Now, they did still have some guys, Antoine Jameson, Ramon Sessions, Varejao. Shout out J.J. Hickson. He had a couple of years as a fantasy-relevant player.
Yeah.
But injuries killed them. They ended up trading Mo Williams, who was one of their best players, to the Clippers midseason for a pick, which, of course, would become Kyrie Irving in that next draft. We have the 95-96 Vancouver Grizzlies, lost 23 in a row. Also the first year of a rebuild. Literally their first year of existence. They were an expansion team that year. The 2011-12 Charlotte Bobcats, the famous 7-win Bobcats. Now, the Bobcats had traded their leading scorer, Steven Jackson, the summer before. They were all out tanking for Anthony Davis. While this roster, you go back and look at it, there were several guys who had solid NBA careers. It's amazing how they were able to activate the worst versions of all of them at one time.
True.
Like, rookie Kemba Walker shot 37% from the field. DJ Augustine, 38%. Corey Maggette, 37%. Boris Diaw shot 41% before being traded to the Spurs in that season, where he would finish the season shooting 59% from the field.
Yeah.
Each of these teams were in major periods of upheaval, and most were deliberately trying to lose from game 1 of the season. The Pistons are in year 4 of Weaver's rebuild. He had 4 off seasons to create this. It is truly one of the most incredible aspects of this streak. Number 9, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak, their play in clutch time. The Pistons are 2-26. They've played 28 games. 12 of those games have gone into clutch time, meaning they've played 12 games that were within 5 points with under 5 minutes to go. In other words, they've had some chances. Unfortunately, they are currently making the case to be the worst clutch team of all time. In the clutch, Detroit is shooting 20% from the field and 15.8% from 3. To put that into some context, over the last 25 seasons, which includes a lot of years where NBA teams were not nearly as efficient as they are now, the worst team in the clutch as far as shooting was the 07-08 Miami Heat, who shot 31.4% from the field in the clutch. Detroit is shooting 20%. This team has a multitude of problems, but falling apart at the end of games is one of the biggest and was on full display last night against the Jazz. And by the way, shout out to the Wizards, who got their first clutch win of the season last night against the Blazers. Go Wiz. Number 8, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak. Of the 15 guys on the main roster, 9 are former lottery picks. I don't know that we've ever seen a team collect former lottery picks quite like Troy Weaver and the Detroit Pistons. Now, listen, maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe it's like the Infinity Gauntlet. Once you get that final former lottery pick. Maybe it's the 10th one. You complete the lottery gauntlet, and the Pistons become the greatest team ever. This continued obsession, though, with trying to hit a home run on prospects who were once considered worthy of a top pick does seem like a particularly annoying theme of Weaver's rebuild. Like if he had went out and found just some normal NBA rotation players instead of filling every extra roster spot with a reclamation project, maybe we're not in this position.
Yeah.
Number 7, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak. Stephen Silas is on this coaching staff. Now, this isn't a big one. It's just kind of crazy to think about his recent journey through the NBA. 5 seasons ago, in the 2019-20 season, Silas was the offensive coordinator for what at the time was one of the greatest offenses the league had ever seen in Dallas. Yeah. He then goes to Houston, expecting to coach James Harden, and instead becomes the coach of a team deliberately trying to bottom out. He experiences everything that happened in Houston over these last 3 seasons, gets fired, and then gets an opportunity to coach on a team that's ready to turn the corner. A team already 4 years into their rebuild, and instead, he's now watching what may be the worst run in league history, far surpassing any of the truly awful basketball he oversaw in Houston. I'll be honest, I went from feeling I went from feeling bad for Silas when Harden left and he was left with this tanking team to not feeling years into the Rockets, they look just as lost, to coming all the way back around. I'm feeling bad for Stephen Silas once again. He was watching Luka every night a few years ago, and now he has been trapped in basketball hell for 4 consecutive seasons. Number 6, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak. I can't stop thinking about the 2022 draft when it comes to Detroit. Because it does feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like if any other team other than Sacramento moves into that 4 spot, a spot that they jumped into, the Pistons probably would have ended up with Keegan Murray, and I would be talking about anything else today. Because going into that draft, my perception was that Jaden Ivey was close to a consensus pick as the 4th guy in the draft. I remember a lot of the talk post-draft being about, oh, the Kangs did it again. Now, of course, it would turn out the Kangs weren't really the Kangs anymore, but we wouldn't find that out for a few more months. But man, just imagine the alternate universe where they get Keegan Murray. Yeah. Maybe they even eventually pair him with Jalen Duren. That would work too. And this isn't even a shot at Jaden Ivey. It's just an acknowledgement that Keegan would have been a picture-perfect fit in Detroit, especially considering his recent jump on defense. Number 5, craziest fact. We're in the top 5 now, Andrew. I didn't really list these in order of importance, but we're in the top 5. Top 5 craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak. We all know this, but it needs to be repeated. Monty Williams is the 2nd highest paid coach in the NBA. The 2 highest paid coaches in the league have combined for 6 wins this season.
Wow.
Combining the salaries for Pop and Monty, that's just under $5 million per win so far. Now, I think the lesson with Monty Williams appears to be, if someone tells you they don't want to do something and aren't really interested, maybe listen to them.
Yeah.
Maybe don't add more zeros every time, especially when it's a coach who has a recent history of a major falling out with a top pick that depressed that player's value to the point where the best return was Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah.
If you pay someone this much to coach the Detroit Pistons, something you do not want to hear after 20 straight losses is, quote, I think we're starting to figure out that we can score if we space the floor properly. Monty said that on December 11th after 20 straight losses.
You think this is him trying to get fired? Is that what you're trying to say? Is that he's just trying to get cut a big fat check to go home?
If that was the eventual outcome of this, I mean, that would be pretty awesome from his perspective, especially if it happened right now, right before the record was set. So his name isn't officially attached.
Gets to go home
all-time losing record. Yeah, go home for. Yeah, I mean that's like my dream. Okay, for myself. Number 4, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak. In Monty's mild defense, however, Detroit is shooting 34.6% on wide open 3-pointers. That is dead last in the league. A wide open shot is defined by NBA.com as a shot where the defender is at least 6 feet away. And for reference, the league on average shoots 39% on wide open threes. They're at 34.6. Now, and that's with, by the way, Bogdanovich, who is doing his part. He is shooting 41% on over 7 threes per game.
How many are
But
for him?
I didn't look up that
See,
specifically.
that's the thing with this one. It's like, yeah, they shoot bad on wide open threes because they have bad shooters that they leave
Right. They're
wide open. I mean, Asar Thompson, how many air balls has he had this season?
He's had a
You
lot.
know,
He
and they got
has
some
had
bad shooters. That number could get worse.
It could get worse. And again, that's with Bogdanovich, who's doing his part. But
Yeah.
you're kind of referring to, the rest of this roster was constructed as if Weaver had been tipped off that the NBA was about to abolish the 3-point line. Like that. That's the only thing that makes sense here. If you got some inside info,
It's
the
true.
number 3 craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak is the fact that this team cannot hold on to the ball while
Yeah.
also not really being able to generate turnovers at a high rate. And
Yeah.
listen, this is a young team. They're going to turn the ball over. I get it. They are second worst in turnovers per game at 16.6, which is only better than the Utah Jazz, who they lost to last night. But how? On a team that has clearly not been constructed with shooting in mind, is this team not generating turnovers? If Weaver wasn't going after shooting, he must have had his eye on defensive players, right? How are the Pistons bottom 5 in opponent turnovers per game, dead last in deflections, bottom 3 in transition defense? At the very least, the Pistons should be a scrappy defense, as they briefly appeared to be at the beginning of the season.
Mhm.
Instead, this team has zero identity. What do you even build off of to create an identity with this roster? Number 2, craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak, the Pistons only have 1 first-round pick available to trade, which we talked about last week. Because of a deal made for the pick that was Isaiah Stewart, the Pistons would need to amend protections with the Knicks in order to trade more than 1 first. Now, to be fair to the Pistons, when we talk about their tanking class of teams, Detroit clearly had the worst starting place. Each of the other 3, OKC, Houston, Orlando, they were able to jumpstart the rebuild with major trades. OKC with the Paul George trade, Houston with the Harden trade, and Orlando with the Vooch trade. The Pistons didn't have that, and so accumulating assets was going to be more difficult. That said, to be 4 years into this and only have 1 available pick to trade, it's a joke. Think about the teams in this league that don't have picks to trade right now, or only have 1 pick to trade. It's not teams at the bottom of the standings. It's contenders who have gone all in. The fact that Detroit has the same number of first to trade at this deadline as the Lakers is completely bizarre. And finally, Andrew, number 1 craziest fact about the Pistons losing streak is the possibility that the Pistons are going to allow Troy Weaver to make another trade for this franchise.
Yeah.
The guy who had 4 off seasons to figure something out and came up with this. It took him 4 years to put this together. He was in the kitchen for 4 years cooking, came out of the kitchen and put this on the table. And it's inedible, Andrew. Okay, you can't eat it. The guy who has left this team bereft of draft assets to trade, meaning that any significant trade will likely need to involve one of their core young players. You're going to give him one last shot because why? Why is this even a conversation? Well, Alex, he signed an extension last season. Who cares? Tom Gores, the owner, has enough money to convince a coach who clearly didn't even want the job to do it. Seems like he should have enough money to move on from the guy who he's like inventing like the anti-process or something where like he's starting from the same point but somehow moving backwards over 4 years. Like, why is Troy Weaver potentially getting this opportunity to make major decisions for the future of this team? I don't get it, Andrew. I wish the Pistons fans specifically and Pistons players a wonderful holiday season. I hope that they get a win over these next few games.
I don't,
I mean,
but I do wish them a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Well, you want
because I am fascinated to just watch this continue.
Okay, you want to see the record be broken, but once it's at 27,
yeah,
will you allow them to win, Andrew? Will you start rooting for the Pistons?
I don't know, man. I'm savage when it comes to like NBA history. I want this to just.
I know what you want. What you want is you want it to last at least until the Spurs game, which is in early January.
Yeah. That is the battle I want to see. That is I mean, I was glued to my TV watching Pistons Wizards the other night, and that's where I'll be. I'll be sitting there watching it as they continue to try to just push history in the wrong direction.